What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. If you guys watched the last video, you know the big news, we are twin turboing my STI. Panzer is kinda no longer with its first version, and we're going into V2, which is a vision I've had for a really long time, to twin turbo this thing, put turbos at the top of the engine, and essentially hood dump it, put it on nitrous, and send it to Pluto. So let me show you guys what we have on the car, and I'll show you what we've been working on for the past like 2 days now. So here is the engine bay. We have the turbos mocked up on our engine hoist. These are in the exact position they need to be in. Symmetric from the fenders, symmetric from the core support, perfectly angled and clocked the same direction. And yeah, so the past few days we've been working on the exhaust manifold, because obviously the old manifold, which is here, this is an ETS one, only has one exit to it. So it's a 4-to-1 collector to 1 exit, so that's for a single turbo. Now that we're running 2 turbos and we're running off 2 cylinders each, we needed another collector to do 2-to-1 and 2-to-1 out the other side, and that way we can feed up pipes to either turbo. So without further ado, let me show you guys what we created. This really looks like it's straight off a supercar, I'm not gonna lie, but this is the exhaust manifold that we made. Now, yes, the collectors are kind of in 2 different spots. That's one to this one's further back so that our hose for our coolant, the lower coolant hose, isn't getting super hot. And then both of them come right to the edge of the valve cover, so we can still pull the engine out with the manifold on. Now, obviously, it's just tacked up right now, but everything is all equal length to the collectors. I believe we're right in that 24-inch mark on the runners. And yeah, that took a long time. We were struggling for a little while, but finally, yeah, that's it. So maybe at some point we'll get this thing 3D scanned, and then we can just get pipes made in that general direction, so it's not a bunch of little pie cuts and angles. But now we have to weld this thing all up, which is gonna be a process, and I can actually let Silas explain that in a second.
Alrighty guys, so we have everything tacked up here where we want it. We have to make sure that these flanges cannot move, and we want to keep the V-bands exactly where they are currently, and that can be a little challenging with stainless, especially with the amount of welds per runner that we have. When you're TIG welding stainless, you have to be very careful with heat. Make sure the heat doesn't warp the pipe, and when you weld stainless steel shrinks a good bit. So we're gonna have to be very careful with how we weld this thing. I want to make a plan for the weld. I'm going to map out, you actually map out the runners, which side you want to weld first, and different spots to keep everything trying to be uniform. And then you want it to cool, let everything, you don't want it to get too heat soaked and then cool out all at once, because it will warp. So that's going to be a long process getting everything perfect, and we will probably have to make a few adjustments here and there on the runners, but this is generally what we're looking at here. This will be pretty much what's on the car, and we have a very good base for what we're doing here, and it should work pretty well. Everything's equal length, so everything should shrink pretty uniformly. We just got to make sure that these flanges stay perfect and go from there.
Yeah. Unknown Brain. Marvin Divine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating things.
While Silas was getting to work welding all the runners, I got to work on the pie cuts and started cutting, grinding, and getting those 100% ready to start turning into pipes.
I'm jealous,
I know that I gotta stay away from all your games, yeah. I know that I found somebody else to love me one day, yeah. You'll realize the grass ain't greener on the other side, no. You did me dirty for the last time, so now I gotta say goodbye.
It is is now about 1:30 in the morning, and I just wrapped up filing and grinding down all of the pie cuts. So I finished all the 2.5-inch up pipe pie cuts and also the 3-inch exhaust. So tomorrow morning, I'm just gonna get right to doing the wastegates, getting those knocked out. Now the pie cuts are ready to go and we can start building pipes. So tomorrow the idea is to finish up welding the last runner on the manifold. Silas got everything done today besides the last runner. So once we get that done, we can get the manifold permanently bolted to the car and then start building the up pipes to the exhaust housing on the turbo. I've never made pie cuts before in my life, but those are all the 3-inch exhaust, and then these are all the 2.5-inch up pipe. So I was working on these probably from around noon today, and yeah, like I said, it's almost 1 in the morning now, but they are all done, all deburred, and ready to build into a pipe. And then coming over here, we have the manifold, like I mentioned. We just have to weld up this last runner and then we're good to go. Obviously this one is just kind of chilling there as well. That was the last one we welded today, or I should say that's the last one Silas welded. I did not do any of these welds because they would look about 500 times worse. But yeah, this thing looks straight off a supercar. I love the looks of that. Spent a lot of time making sure everything is equal length and perfect. And yeah, this collector isn't really, because that's not tacked in, it's got a little play. That's why it looks like they're not even. Obviously this one is longer, but they will be 100% in line when that one is actually welded in. We have our reasons for that one being a little bit longer. I think I mentioned we're a little bit further back on this one to dodge the lower coolant hose, and to keep everything equal length, that one ended up just having to be a little bit longer. Maybe we'll adjust in the future, but I personally love the looks of that. I think it looks killer. So yeah, spent a lot of time and I'm stoked on it. But I think we're at a good stopping point, so I'm gonna head in, get cleaned up, and I'll pick this video up in the morning. Good morning. It is now the next day, and you know, I worked pretty late last night, but Silas got the manifold completely welded up this morning. We're about to slap it on the car and start building our up pipes, but I wanted to show you guys what it looks like completely welded up before we actually get it on the car where you can't really see it. So check this out. The thing came out absolutely insane. So now we just got to get that on the car with the gaskets, and then yeah, we're gonna start building up pipes. We already took some of the pie cuts that I made last night and started tacking them together. That way we can kind of just get that design. I think it's gonna be honestly pretty simple coming out of the turbos down to the manifold once it's in place. So hopefully we can get this done. I know pie cuts take a long time to weld, depending on how many we have, and I know we're gonna have a lot, and because the welds shrink, we really have to plan it out because obviously the turbos are in the exact spot they need to be, and if one's shorter than the other, my OCD is gonna go crazy. So we're gonna take our time with this and just make sure everything's perfect. All right, so Silas and I both took a side to do the up pipes on, and he just finished his. Check this fitment. So we'll go on the manifold right there, clicks in, and then coming up to the turbo, go ahead and click that guy in. Bingo. Perfect fit. No gaps. Dang. Good job, buddy. We are on the last piece of the last up pipe. This is the last pie cut. Let's slide it in. See if she fits. Oof. That's pretty perfect.
Oh yeah.
All right, we are ready to weld this thing up, and yeah, so go ahead and get a mark like somewhere in here, and then we can get this thing tacked up and get both these up pipes welded. It is now Monday morning, and I'm back here working on Panzer, of course. Now, while Silas is at work, I am trying to get the exhaust done today. So I got all the pie cuts for everything besides the intercooler piping done and grinded, filed down, all that kind of boring work is done. So I've been working on the exhaust a little bit this morning, got a few things tacked up, and we're really close to finishing them off. So I want to show you guys what we're working with, and then we'll finish them off together. So I spent the better half of the morning just trying to get this thing mocked up and fit. Now, symmetry is key on this car, so I've been keeping them symmetric, measuring angles, and making sure we are 100% mirrored. Now, I thought I was gonna have to move the filler neck, but I might be able to actually just squeeze right around it. Now, yes, it is gonna be pretty warm in this general vicinity, but it is gonna be heat wrapped, and there's gonna be a turbo blanket on the exhaust housing of the turbo as well to try to keep temps down. We'll see how well it works. If it starts melting stuff, then we'll have to figure something else out. But for right now, we have this exhaust mocked up in there, and same thing on this side. Now, if you look under the V-band here, you can see I have it all marked out. So these things are 100% mirrored on either side, coming up just like that. And now I ran this string line from strut tower to strut tower. So that way our wastegates can't be any further back than this. So the wastegate is the furthest back exhaust when looking at this guy over here. So wastegate dump's gonna be further back left, and then your exhaust is gonna be closer to the right. So the idea here is the wastegate dump's gonna be right up against the string line and then about ½ an inch above the hood line where that little bezel's gonna sit. So the wastegate will be right around here, and then exhaust tip will be right in this area. Now, yes, it's gonna be pretty close to these lines here, but we're gonna be building heat shields to wrap the ABS pump and all these lines. So hopefully none of this will be interrupted, but if it is, then we'll have to come up with another game plan. And then looking at the driver's side wastegate, kind of same idea. Right here, jammed up against the string line, and then exhaust will be somewhere in this vicinity here. Obviously, heat soak and just plain heat is our major concern when setting up exhaust and wastegate dumps right here next to electrical, next to brake lines, next to all that kind of stuff. But Funk Motorsport kind of hooked it up, came through with some turbo blankets and heat wrap and protective heat wrap for the wiring as well. So hopefully that'll come in clutch and it'll keep temps way down. We'll obviously do some testing with it once the car's running, but as of right now, I think we're gonna be okay. I'll try to keep it as stood off from anything, hazardous as I can. But when you're putting exhaust in your engine bay next to everything else, it's kind of inevitable. So now what we need to do with the exhaust is obviously level it out so that we can get a straight shot up out the hood with the teardrop. So I think we'll probably need 5 more pie cuts on that guy to get it angled up. I know 6 is a 90, they're cutting 15-degree angles. So I think 5, because it's already angled kind of up, we should be good. Let me grab some more pie cuts and we'll kind of stack them up and see what we need to do to get that guy, facing upwards. So obviously very, very rough draft here, but the exhaust is in place. Obviously we're gonna stack another straight so it stands up a little higher to make it up through the hood, because right now it's probably sitting about flush with the hood. But with the exhaust here, it is gonna push our wastegates back a little bit, but it's not a big deal. If we can keep the wastegates, the back of them flush with this string, we have room here to run that tube. And then same thing over there. We have room next to the strut tower. Actually, plenty of room right here to run that tube as well. So I don't think that's an issue. We'll just keep the back of the wastegates flush up against this string line, and that should be good. So what I want to do now is get this mirrored on that side, and then we can work on leveling and getting the height right on the tip itself. But overall, gosh dang, that is nuts. I've always wanted a hood dump like this, or a fender exit. The original plan was to do fenders, but then I'd have to relocate quite literally everything, and right now we can actually keep it in place. So I kind of like this idea. Both exhausts are now tacked up besides the tips. Obviously, we're not going to tack them in until we know how high we got to go. But check this out. This is so surreal to see the car looking exactly how I've always wanted it. Oh my gosh. That is so sick. And then the wastegate dumps will be right here. Let me grab a dump tube so we can mock it up. So this will sit just like so. That is freaking nuts. Not gonna lie, boys, when I got these things tacked up, got them in and got both tips taped on, it looks like that. It's almost a little teary-eyed, not gonna lie. This is crazy. Like, I'm so grateful to actually be put in a position where I can do this, because it's literally the exact car I wanted this to be when I originally started building it. So there's really not a whole lot left. All the stuff I was worried about not fitting fits perfect, and it's just a lot of welding to go. So I got to go down to the hardware store and refill some argon gas, because we went through 2 tanks in like the last 4 days because of all the back purging. So we got to get that filled back up so we can continue welding the up pipes, and now we can almost weld the exhaust in. So as far as the tips, we can't really get those tacked in until probably the very end. Once these turbos are sat in place with the up pipes where we can pull the engine hoist off and lower the hood down, then we can start measuring out for exhaust stuff. But I think we're gonna do all the intercooler and intercooler piping stuff before we even get to that point. I think we made some pretty solid progress in this video, so I'm going to wrap this one up here. I hope you guys enjoyed. This build is coming together. I'm super stoked, and I'll catch you in the next one. But until then, peace out. See y'all later.